Darren.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
Good. It's been a long time since we've done one of these. I know you wanted to talk about technology today. You wanted to talk about what technology is coming and how the industry should embrace it. Tell us more about it.
Sure. So a couple things is, especially during COVID-19, we've all heard about the issues related to labor. And as you and I have talked about in the past, I think we might have even referenced it one time on one of our little videos, but we certainly blogged about it.
Mhm.
There are options within the technology world that can help our members, reduce some of that labor stress.
Right.
And while I'm, no expert on technology, I would say, here's just a couple of simple things to consider. Now, I'm not saying they're simple in cost, but they are simple things to consider. So we've talked in the past about digital menu boards.
Mhm.
So if you're struggling to staff your store and you've got labor problems, you need to be looking at solutions such as a digital menu board.
Right.
So that's just one simple thing. And again, I know it's not necessarily cheap, but why are we still using old static boards when we're struggling to get folks to man our registers? That means someone's got to leave that register to go and change the price manually. Someone's got to go change it, and put the new things on it or strike it out or whatever we do.
Mhm.
So that's just one example. Go to things like digital price tags. We've talked about that in the past. Think about the labor hours and the labor dollars that we spend pricing merchandise. And again, it's important to do so because all the data shows when you've got unpriced merchandise, it negatively impacts customer experience and it negatively impacts, sales. So you
Mhm.
want to price things. But there's an opportunity again to redeploy your labor some way rather than going out there and pricing everything. And again, think about the times you can change prices throughout the day, how you can manage it, how you can create promotions, markdowns through your digital signs. Then to some of the more expensive things, but really that hammer out some labor hours for you and allow you to, again, redeploy the labor differently is like cashierless checkout systems.
Yeah.
Recently I had the opportunity, I shared with you, I was in Midland, Odessa at a DK travel center, and they're using a company called MassGen, which is one of our new vendors.
Yep.
That program itself was just, or I should say the product, is just fascinating. Myself and the gentleman who was traveling with me, we
Mhm.
tried multiple times to screw around with the system. We were putting items on, off to verify it could easily track and account for merchandise. Up to the point where we're like, hey, some people are like, hey, you need to leave. You've been here playing around with this system. We're just fascinated. It really was. It was like two kids.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about it was it allowed the staff at that particular location to be able to do some different things. And I know cashierless systems are out there.
Right.
Some of our members already have them and are deploying them already.
Mhm.
But again, if you're not looking at that as an option and you're not really looking at yes, they're expensive to bring in, but what's the cost of your turnover at your location? What's the
Right.
cost of hiring people? How are we going to compete with companies that are going to be paying $20, $25 an hour and in our industry? So we've got to look at this stuff from the long term. And again, how does it allow us to use our labor differently? And
Okay.
finally, we've talked about Smooth Commerce before. Again, that's another one of the NATSO member vendors. And there's
Mhm.
many companies out there, obviously, that do the apps, the ordering apps. But what's really fascinating is when you go into a place, let's call it like a Chick-fil-A, and you're going through the drive-through, you can see how many more people are using the drive-throughs for pickups, right? And or they've created curbside pickup for those ordering systems. But it's becoming just part of what we do. Our chairwoman recently asked a lot of us a question, and I think it was herself and Lisa, when's the last time you used an app? And surprisingly, most of the people on that phone call said, yeah, I recently used it either last night or actually this morning. So if you're not embracing order apps, if you're not reaching out to whether it's Smooth or whoever you prefer to use, if you're not reaching out to those folks, I think from a technology standpoint, you're just going to further fall behind. And again, how does that allow you to use your labor differently?
Are there any members that immediately come to mind that are embracing some of this technology?
I think Casey's, as
Oh,
an example, does an exceptional job with their. It's just recently released, but with their app slash loyalty program. I know in the past, Quick Trip, I've always found this as an exceptional job. I know I've told this story before, but when I'm with my grandson, we pull up to a Quick Trip to fuel.
uh-huh.
I start fueling, and he's already ordered his shake or whatever he does, and goes in there and gets it. So and again, we have other members. Love's obviously Pilot. There's also smaller operations out there that are doing a nice job with apps and so forth. But it's something I just think as a whole, as an industry, we have to try to really take a hard look at and embrace it. And I know in the past we've said things, I've talked about this. We members say, well, I'm on the interstate. Why should I even have an app? They're not even going to know me. But I've been shocked again when I've traveled with my grandson or traveled with my nieces and nephews that we pull up the places that they're not part of that loyalty program or not part of that app,
Mhm.
how quickly they download that app, because a lot of times they have free drinks or
Yeah,
a
yeah,
discount on a product. And while I may myself not do that because I'm busy fueling, it's been shocking to me how many folks do that. So I'll ask my niece or nephew, how often do you do this? Oh, every time I go to a place, uncle, if they have an app, I download it because there might be a discount, 10%, 20% off, or free this or free that. It's worth doing. So even if you're an interstate location in the middle of nowhere, you might be surprised how many people download your app just to get some sort of discount or something. So.
it seems like this technology is getting cheaper and easier to employ too, to use.
I yeah, I agree with you. There's been a lot of talk that, these types of things have been out there for a long time, and COVID has pushed that along.
Yeah,
And I think that's very, very true. I just certainly, at getting back to this the cashier list system that MassGen has,
uh-huh.
I've seen a lot of cashier list systems, and I was shocked when I saw that. In this particular company that was using it, it was shocking, and I was also surprised how many people used it. That few how few people were really frightened of it when not. And anyways, it was neat to see.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a like brand new Safeway by us, and they have a much bigger cashierless section, and it's my favorite part. So as I can just like whip through the store and then whip through that part, and I'm out. It's good.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those folks that have been doing cashierless for a while
Yeah,
that have shared numbers with me, and again, this is somewhat anecdotal, but those that have shared with me have not seen um, seen sales increases in most cases. They've
yeah.
seen transaction count improvements. They've seen scan rate improvements, and they've also seen less shrink.
Hmm.
And again, that's challenging because a lot of folks don't want to believe that, unfortunately, a lot of the theft comes from, our own people.
Yeah.
But the statistics show that the vast majority of the theft that we experience are coming from inside the store itself. So while I'm sure there is some theft that goes on with folks, misscanning things and so forth, and you've got some bookwork errors and so forth, but what folks that are looking at that data and analyzing it and comparing it to past years where they didn't have that technology, they are reporting surprisingly very, very positive improvements across the board.
Okay. Well, let's switch a bit over to EV. I know you want to talk about that too. Um, a different type of technology. Are you seeing more people installing EV? Where do you think we are with that?
I think there's certainly a lot of buzz around EV,
Uh,
and our members have certainly been reaching out to folks like Tesla, Charge America, ChargePoint, again, a member partner of NAT, so ChargePoint being. So there's certainly a lot of buzz about that. But what I wanted to talk about today related to EV is just if you're going to embrace EV,
Yep.
if you are going to get involved with it, I
Mhm.
think you have to take what I'm going to call a proper approach to the program itself.
Right.
And as you know, we have observed together and/or observed through pictures or observing drivers. Today's traditional EV customer does not appear to be a very good customer for the travel center industry. hundreds of observations, thousands of pictures. I've seen in the last, say, 2 to 3 years that this customer primarily stays in their vehicle and watches Netflix, as an example. Then they may go and use a restroom, but they're not really coming out of our stores. And I think some of that has to do with, where we position their charging stations. So I know a lot of folks will ask me, where should we put those? And I usually push back on the retailer. What is your expectation? Do you want to give primary position to this? Do you want to put it up closed front? What do you want to do with that? Because
Yeah.
it's really up to the retailer to make that decision.
Mhm.
But what I do tell people is, if you are going to embrace it, treat it like it is a fuel, like anything other type of fuel. And what I mean by that is, if you want that customer to come into your store, you probably want to put a canopy over that particular charging area, correct? Because if you and I are in a car and we're charging it and it's 50 yards away from the main building and it's raining, the likelihood of us getting out of the car and going into the main building is not really high.
Yeah.
Secondary is where you put it, right? If it's 50 yards away from the main building, if that's what you decided to do because you don't feel that that's a particular future customer for you,
Mhm.
again, that customer is not going to come inside. We've talked about this a few times, and some of the board members have recently heard this when we're talking about trailers. So if the F-150, and I've said this many times,
Mhm.
there's 900,000 of those a year that are produced. Car Driver did a really nice article on them recently, saying that if the EV F-150, if you just do one out of every 9, you're looking at 100,000 new vehicles. And that's not a small amount of vehicles per se. But how do you take care of that customer who is towing? In today's market, he or she has to unhook their trailer, take their electric SUV or their electric pickup truck, and pull it into some sort of parking lot, for lack of better words, where there's a curb,
Yeah.
to charge their vehicle. So again, if you were looking for that customer, if you're a California-based travel center, Washington, Portland, maybe where this will pick up steam quicker,
Uh-huh.
you do need to be thinking about that stuff. How does that vehicle, charge? How does he or she, properly get to your property and put a charge into their vehicle? So again, I'm not one to say when it will come, and I've said that many times. We don't know when this will, when will be the tipping point, but
Right.
we all know it's coming. So if it is coming and you want to be part of that, you need to kind of embrace that with your store layout, your store design, and your thought process as it relates to EV. Because think about this: we already know factually that truck drivers in our parking lots are placing orders for different food items around the travel center. We've talked about that many times, where I'm doing my reviews and I'm digging through the trash and I'm pulling out boxes. I use Payway as an example because that's one of the first things when I ever dug through the trash, I found, and I was fascinated by, why is this Payway here?
Yeah.
But think about that. You and I, after a long drive, are sitting in our charged car, and we're 2 miles, 3 miles outside the city. We could easily order our favorite vegetarian pizza and Kung Pao shrimp. I mean, it's no longer a impossibility for that type of stuff to happen. So again, if you want that customer to get out of their car and come inside, you need to be thinking about ways to make that happen.
So put a canopy on it, right?
Yeah, put a canopy on it, make it closer to the operation. Again, if that's what you're looking for, and consider what I'd call charge through chargers, and specifically allowing a vehicle to pull up, charge, and then pull through, versus having to unhook a trailer and so forth like that. Maybe make it easy for that person to place an order. Maybe on the charging things, you have your app information, your loyalty information, so the driver can place an order while he or she is sitting in their car through your app. Maybe it's delivered out to that vehicle. So maybe one of the strategies is, you don't want to give it primary position in your travel center and your parking lot area, but at least you want to make that customer know that, hey, excuse me, we have ways to, we have great food in here. We have great hot dogs, hamburgers, pizzas, chicken, whatever it may be, salads, and, download my app and we'll have someone, come out there and deliver it to you.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I think something like that could be successful, could be inexpensive in some ways if you already have the app already. And as we talked before, if you're already using technology to help you redeploy your labor,
Mhm.
it can very well be a situation where where you are not using more labor. I think that's again what some of the folks that are really beginning to embrace the technology are saying, that it may not necessarily reduce labor, but allows them to redeploy labor. We saw that a lot in our European study tours, where people that were really embracing cashierless or click and pay and that type of stuff, they were often saying that the labor dollars ended up staying the same,
Yep.
but it allowed them to redeploy that. So all of a sudden, shelves were fuller more frequently.
Yep.
They had less out of stocks because they had people constantly, stocking the shelves, coolers, and so forth.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Amy. Good talk.
Bye.